All righty, welcome aboard. Let's do a Bible study. Today we're going to be in Nehemiah chapter 2. And if you're just joining us here today, my name is Mike Holmes, interim pastor here, Sinclair Baptist. And we've got some online Bible study stuff. You can go back and start at the beginning, but we're in Nehemiah chapter 2. And today we're going to focus on verses 9 through about 17 as far as we're going to get. But let's go ahead and just pause for a moment and take a moment and let's find the book of Nehemiah and go ahead and read chapter 2. So I'm going to pause this and you can start it back up in just a moment, but let's read chapter 2. All right, hey, I hope you made it all the way through. Some good stuff, a little bit review for some of you that have been with us. And we always want to kind of hit the review. That's part of teaching, is to go back and to make sure we've got some things. I think some of you looked up how far it was from where Nehemiah was to Jerusalem, in distance-wise, where, the palace of Shushan was, some of that. So today we have a very simple, very first question. In chapter 9, it talks about he came to the governors that were beyond the river. And here is the first simplest question, one question only: what river are we talking about? So let me pause it and pull out your maps and pull out your Google, whatever you need, but see if you can figure out what that river was. And we'll be back in a moment. Okay, good. I hope you got it, and we got a consensus on what river that was. It's always good, as I've mentioned, to kind of get the context of who was where and what was going on. There's spiritual stuff we can pull out of here, but a lot of it is, of course, coordinated with the timing and the place and who was present and some of that. In fact, this next question, it has a little bit of that in it. I want to talk about a couple of the adversaries. And so let me read the question to you. And again, you have to do a little research on this one and then a little bit of thinking. So here it is in chapter 2, verse 19 through 17, right through there, verse 10. We're introduced to the adversaries of the cause. Where did these men rule geographically in relationship to Jerusalem? So there's a question kind of on your map, and you're going to have to discuss this, look at some maps, see if you can figure it out. We got a couple different guys there that we're introduced to. Where were they geographically in relationship to Jerusalem? And now the kind of more the spiritual question here, and I'll put these on the screen. Why do you think they were enemies and against the rebuilding of Jerusalem? Why is it that they were there? Are there some things in the text that kind of tell us that, or are there things that we know about other Bible verses that kind of tell us why they were enemies? And sort of the follow-up to that is, do we have adversaries in this day and age, and how should we treat them? How should we treat people who are enemies or adversaries of the cause of Christ? So let me pause it, and you guys hop into that question. All right, I'm back. Here we go. I hope that was a good one for you. Verse 12, we find kind of an interesting thing. Nehemiah opens up to the reader. He doesn't say this out loud, but he opens up to the readers as he is doing this about what God has put upon his heart. And in the next few chapters, this becomes evident, very evident, to everyone, not just the reader people, but all the folks that are involved there. What are some of the things that God uses to speak to his heart? What are the things that God used to speak to his heart? Kind of a lot of different things here. From earlier in our reading, chapter 1, what are some of the things that God used to speak to his heart? And then kind of the follow-up question, what does God use in this day and age to speak to our hearts? How does God speak to your heart? So let's stop and discuss that one. All right, question number 4. And I know that first one was kind of a short question about where the river was or what river it was. So I got a little bonus question for you at the end, and you may have time in your group to cover it. If not, it's kind of a take-home question that you can look at. But question number 4, before we get to the bonus question, in verse 17, there's a phrase that says, "Come and let us build up the wall." This is kind of the rallying cry of Nehemiah. And as noted by the whole book and the results found later in the book, it was very effective for recruiting. So here's a question I have for you. Have you ever recruited anyone for anything? And this would be a good discussion question. Have you ever recruited anyone for anything? And then here's sort of the teaching question of this one. What are some of the elements of good leadership that are found in this verse, and really these few verses right in here? There's some tremendous leadership going on here, and what are some of the elements of good leadership that are found there? So that's question number 4. And a bonus question, if you got through all the other ones here, we find a word that we actually talked about a few weeks ago. In fact, I think it was the very first one that we did. But in chapter 2, verse 17, the last verse that we're covering, and it's actually the very last word, it says, "Again, we see the word reproach is used." Okay, reproach means to shame or disgrace or embarrassment. Have there been other times in Bible history when something has been a shame or disgrace to the cause of Christ? So the broken down walls were a shame and a disgrace. Have there been other things in the Christendom, we'll say, in the Bible history, that were a shame or disgrace to the cause of Christ? And what are some things in this day and age that are a shame and disgrace to the cause of Christ? And of course, then kind of a question, what can we do to either avoid them or correct them, as Nehemiah did? So that's just a kind of a bonus question. Take that one and think about it a little bit, and make sure that you take time with your groups and have some prayer time right now, that you just kind of all pray and ask God to help you to be the leader that he wants you to be in your family, with your friends, with your neighbors, at your workplace. But just there's a simple prayer, and we just like everyone to ask God today, "Dear God, help me to be the right kind of leader." So let's just leave it at that. All right. God bless, and we'll see you next week.